Hi Adam, how are you?
Hi Andy, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. Thanks for your time today. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, just catching up with Adam today, we're going to talk about Adam's career, stuff he's done in the past, and where he is now. So I don't want to take it over at all, Adam, but do you want to give us a quick background to yourself and your job as you're currently in?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Adam. I'm the head of undergraduate recruitment and marketing at the University of Birmingham at the moment. In terms of how I got there, it depends how far you want me to go back, really. I mean, I've been working since a very young age. I had grandparents that were newsagents, so they had me in their newsagent shop from the age of 7 or 8, delivering papers and dealing with people and serving customers and stuff, probably completely illegally. But certainly from when I was 18, I spent 5 years working in a cinema. You might think, what's the point of mentioning that on a higher education related interview? Well, actually, that taught me quite a lot about dealing with different types of people, managing people, operations of business, customer service in a fairly fast-paced environment, those sorts of things. So I spent 5 years there, did 5 different jobs. That'll be a theme that you'll see as we chat. But started as a barman, then I went into HR, so I was kind of doing payroll, hiring and firing, recruitment, and that sort of thing. Became a department manager for the retail division of the cinema, and then finally became an operations manager, where I looked after marketing, scheduling and booking, day-to-day operations and everything else. So that taught me quite a lot actually about working with different types of people. Whilst I was doing that and working at the cinema, I was studying. So on the back of my A-levels, I always wanted to be a graphic designer, so I'm a failed graphic designer, hence the stripy t-shirt. I went to art college to do my foundation in art and design, and whilst I was there, things changed quite a bit. So 2 years after my A-levels, in the end, I went to university and did marketing with events management at the old College of Food in Birmingham, now called University College Birmingham. So I was kind of studying and working full time, which was pretty full on at the time. You can get away with it when you're young. So it was a pretty intense 3 years, but I learned loads there. Pretty much straight as soon as I graduated, started working at Newman University College at the time as their marketing assistant. Did that for about 12 months. About a year later, became Senior Education Liaison Officer, Student Recruitment Officer these days, but it's called Education Liaison at the time.
Sounds good,
about 18 months later, I moved into a marketing officer role there. And then about 6-9 months after that, I moved to the University of Birmingham, where I've been for the last 9 years. I've done 5 jobs at Birmingham. So I started here as a marketing officer in one of the colleges. Then I did the Marketing and Communications Manager job for 3 different colleges. And then I moved into my current role about 2.5 years ago as head of undergraduate recruitment and marketing.
So it's quite a collection, an eclectic mix of careers, right from that newsagent all the way through. So taking you back to your days coming fresh out of university, straight into Newman, how did you sort of fall into the world of student recruitment then?
Well, it was the first job I applied for. So I graduated, applied, spent around a year there as their marketing assistant. Really small team at the time, so there were only 4 of us. We had a marketing manager, marketing officer, education liaison officer, and me. And in that sort of environment where you've only got a small number of people, you learn quite quickly about the different facets of the team. So yeah, I've been doing the assistant job for about a year, and this, I think it was called Senior Education Liaison Officer job, came up as a maternity cover, so common contract. Just went for it. I'd already worked really closely with the post holder across open days. Felt really comfortable with that side of the role. I was really organised, obviously key for anybody working in the world of student recruitment, as you all know. I like the data crunching side of things, so looking at our schools' engagement work and seeing whether or not that had an impact on our recruitment from particular schools and particular regions. And like I say, it was called Education Liaison or Schools Liaison before that. There'll be people listening to this that have had those titles over the years. And I think those changing titles have kind of pretty reflective of the change in the sector over that period. I joined Newman a year or 2 after the £3,000 fees came in. And then obviously the £9,000 fees came in a few years later as well. So that just increased competition, marketisation of the sector. So things have changed quite a lot in the 12 years that I've worked in the sector, really. It feels a bit salesy sometimes in student recruitment, I suppose, these days, and that's not always been the case. I think most people that have worked in the sector for 20, 30 years or whatever will tell you it something different, but it is effectively selling. But we're selling something ethical, and I think that was really important for me when I started. I graduated in marketing and events management, but I was really keen that whilst marketing and sales or recruitment are seen as the dark arts sometimes, I suppose, in some circles, I was keen that whatever I do is promoting or selling something ethical. And I think higher education is very much that. So yeah, as with most of the roles in my career, a job came up, I thought, yeah, I can do that, went for it. Ended up doing it for about 18 months, really wide-ranging experience across the team. And I was doing a lot of the day job still as well, so still going out to schools, leaving the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, coming back at 9 o'clock on the night. Again, you can get away with that when you're 23, 24. I probably couldn't do it now.
The glory years. And then, so after you finished sort of in your role in education liaison, am I right? I think you went over to a marketing PR side. So what made you fancy the change?
Well, I guess marketing sort of naturally aligned with what I graduated in, and it sort of aligned itself more neatly to what I originally set out to do when I was 13, 14 in graphic design. Not that I was doing any design work. It was a promotion, so it was another maternity cover, another secondment that came up in the team. Going back to that assistant role that I started at Newman doing, I'd worked closely with the marketing PR officer as well on things like prospectus, web content, brand campaigns, to a lesser extent back in those days, social media, but there was still a bit of that starting to creep in. I enjoyed it, wanted to learn more, went for it, got it. And the PR side of it, so it was a marketing PR officer job. The PR side of the team was relatively new to me. We use an agency for PR, as do a number of institutions of that kind of smaller size. I don't know whether they still do that at Newman or not. I've been used to managing agency relationships on the design and print side of things, and also obviously our school's relationship management. So that was a good transferable skill that to move across to the PR stuff. I still enjoy the creative side of marketing. Obviously the graphic design thing never happened, but I learned a lot of creative principles doing my foundation in art design. I still like thinking in that way. I think those skills naturally lend themselves to marketing type roles. So I ended up doing that one for about 9 months, and then a marketing officer job came up at the University of Birmingham, and I moved here.
Wow. So then that was bye-bye to Newman. And what made you, again, so having got that experience in media, marketing, PR, and then come over to University of Birmingham in your marketing role, was that again just another opportunity you felt just to have a run at, or did you really fancy a big institutional change?
Yeah, so I've always, as you can probably tell from my accent, I've always lived in Birmingham. I've always kind of been through the university campus, and anybody that's been to the University of Birmingham will know it's a brilliant campus. And yeah, I'd kind of worked in a small place at Newman. I guess the difference there is there's kind of 250, 300 staff. You can walk across the whole campus in 10 minutes. So to move to somewhere like Birmingham was big jump, one of the biggest unis in the UK, 2 mile square campus, 8,000 staff, 35,000 students. So it was, yeah, it was a bit of a jump, but it was a permanent job. So I'd spent, as you've just heard, I've spent quite a lot of my career on secondments in various roles, and I'd encourage most people to do that. You just learn so many different things by moving around and doing different things. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve moving to Birmingham. I'd spent time working on big projects at Newman, being part of that small team. And the marketing officer job that I moved to at Birmingham was focused on one of the colleges, our Life and Environmental Sciences College. Again, really small team of 3 people and me. Nice college to work in, but I did struggle a little bit with the scale of the place when I first started.
And that's interesting that you moved from quite a centralised team at Newman to then working in a college or a department of faculty at Birmingham. How did you find that? Was that a different relationship you had then with your team and with wider teams across the university? Was that quite an adjustment?
Yeah, massive. So I think it took me a long time. So like I say, I worked at Newman on quite a lot of large scale projects, video production projects, prospectuses, brand building campaigns. And my role was definitely more focused when I started at Birmingham. It was the work where I struggled really. I found it frustrating not being involved in those wider university discussions around the large scale campaigns. I thought I'd got something to add there. But actually it was a case of earning my stripes, and actually that relationship between colleges and central services. I don't like the phrase central services, but that's the phrase that people tend to use. That's changed and moved on quite a bit over the years. I think people are more involved in conversations more broadly now. But there were things when I first started at Birmingham around, somebody asked me, do I know how to place a £500 advert in the Psychologist magazine on the back of running like hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of campaigns at Newman? So I was like, yeah, I can probably handle that. So there are elements of it that I found frustrating, but I'm glad I did things the way I did. Like I say, I had a super supportive line manager who came from a not dissimilar background to me in terms of having done some student recruitment work, done some marketing work. And it just took me about 18 months to get used to how the place works, really, to build up the relationships that I needed to do my job effectively. It took a little while too, but once I got stuck into it, started to get used to it and enjoy it. And I was given a specific remit to look after international marketing for the college as well, which was something completely new to me. So I learned lots from that. And then again, the theme for the whole interview, a secondment opportunity came up. So my boss was going on maternity leave and asked me if I wanted to cover as the marketing and communications manager for that college, and that felt like a really good opportunity too.
Yeah, so that is a theme, isn't it? Taking secondment opportunities and these things that do come up. So that's a really good tip for people looking at progression and trying to get new experiences, is taking those opportunities as they do come. So fast forwarded 5 roles, wasn't it? You said to where we are now at Birmingham. So now head of undergraduate marketing and recruitment. So what would you say were some of the key things that led you towards the job? Once you got into the University of Birmingham sphere, if you like, what were some of the key things that you picked up throughout the other 4 that led you to where you've got to now?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. I've done 5 jobs. So I started as a marketing officer, then I did 3 different colleges as marketing and communications manager before moving over into a central role. I think there are probably 3 key principles that are absolutely essential to working in a senior manager type role in the university, and particularly in a university that's the size of the one that I'm working in at the moment. Number 1, absolutely key to everything, ability to manage relationships. That'll unlock the doors to get things done for you. I often talk about it as building up a bank of favours and building up those favours far beyond the number that you'll ever need to cash in. So that's what I've spent most of the last kind of 5 or 6 years doing, really. And you're not doing it consciously all of the time, obviously. I'm not as cynical as that, but I got to know quite a lot of the senior academics in the colleges, as well as a real range of professional services staff. So those business partner college roles, really key to me understanding how the institution works and giving it context for everything that I'm doing in my current role. So effectively, it's about, certainly again in an institution the size of Birmingham, it's about getting people lined up over a longer period of time so that they're comfortable with whatever you're proposing and they don't come to it cold. Sometimes you don't have that long period of time, and that's where the relationships that you've already got pay dividends. So as well as working in a college preparing me for working in a wider institutional role, I think working in a number of different colleges was even more valuable. And that's kind of become my USP, if you like, in my current role. So there's a senior managers team of about 40 people in the external relations division at Birmingham, and I'm the only one of those senior managers that's worked in 3 different colleges and in a central role. So I tend to look at things slightly differently, through a slightly different lens to the others, which can only be helpful. I'm not saying either lens is right or wrong, but the different viewpoints will always help. And I think being collaborative is pretty much the only way to get anything done in the university context, really. So it's about getting to know people and their motivations and doing it in your own way, and being honest as well, I think. That was only one point, believe it or not. The second one was kind of linked to the first point, but I think it's about understanding the political environment that you're operating in, and that's true of higher education, of a university, or of any job, really. So the jobs that I've done at Birmingham are certainly the most political that I've done in the 15, 16 years that I've been working, probably due to this being the largest organisation that I've worked for. Universities can be large, bureaucratic, complex. That can sometimes be a bit overwhelming to people, certainly when you start working in the sector. So you just got to take time to understand how your place of work works, move around to those different roles, take side steps. So quite a few of my secondments have been side steps as well as up. And it's just helped me to get under the skin of the culture of the place, really. And then the third one is kind of having good judgment and instinct, particularly in a leadership role. So obviously earlier on in your career, you kind of get promoted for being good at your job and being able to deliver really good work. As you move onwards and upwards, it becomes about judgment and instinct and decision making and kind of having influence. And those are much harder things to teach and learn. You have to earn your influence, and that kind of links back to that relationship building thing that I talked about at the start there. So some of that just comes with experience. I mean, I've been managing for 16 years. I was quite a young manager at 19 when I started. I've got some things right, I've got some things really wrong, but you're always learning throughout your career, and what you get better as you move through your career and understand an organisation better is that instinct to judge a particular situation, I think. So no one ever gets everything right, and you just learn that as you get older, in my opinion.
And hopefully you get a bigger percentage right than wrong.
I hope so. You'll have to ask
along the line. So I think it's really interesting to see about relationships building. Obviously, and that helps in recruitment work, doesn't it, when people are out and about, whether it's outreach in WP in schools as well. So that skill set that a lot of people will be working in now will be something they'll be able to carry through later on. Interesting you're saying about secondments as well. I suppose, if you don't mind me asking, were there any secondments you were really tempted and think that's what I really want to get into and I don't really want to go back, or were there ones where you thought I've made a bit of a mistake here, so I've rather got a safety net, or was the breadth of experience always useful for you?
I've just been super lucky with the jobs that I've done, to be honest. So all of the secondments that I've done have added some sort of value, even if that's learning from things that people are doing differently. And I think, right, well, I wouldn't probably have handled that in that way. So actually, there's something quite nice about a secondment. And I'm not saying that this is particularly good practice, but there's something quite nice about thinking, this isn't my permanent job. I can try different things. If it doesn't work, it's not a massive problem. I have been lucky with the ones that I've done. I think the more challenging roles have been the permanent ones, because then with a secondment, you can kind of say, right, I've got 12 months here. This is what I'm going to deliver in that 12 months. I'm going to focus on X, Y, and Z, and that's what I'm going to do. When I headed into my marketing and communications manager role in the College of Social Sciences, big challenge, big college, new head of college, new director of operations, lots of new senior staff. I think I rubbed some of them up the wrong way, because I speak really honestly, and sometimes that can come across a bit brutally, and I just felt like that's the right approach. Certainly with teams as well, like in terms of trust and honesty and respect, those are the principles with any team. If you haven't got those things, then you're in big trouble. So actually, it's been the permanent ones that have been more difficult. With a secondment, you can kind of just go, right, well, I know what I can achieve in a 12-month period, and if you can deliver that by the end, you've got something to be proud of as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I think that's some really good advice as well for people who are maybe on the fence, thinking about where to take opportunities as well. So where you are now in your role, so yeah, head of undergraduate recruitment and marketing at Birmingham, how did you find jumping into sort of a hot seat where there was sort of two career contexts? I know I used to work with you at university as well. When these two teams came together, how did you find managing? That's quite a big period of change for people to go through. So how did you find adapting to that?
Yeah, it was a big period of change. So I guess for context, I mean, we restructured our division slightly at Birmingham a couple of years ago to make sure that the individual teams were focused and had the right skills to continue to do what we need to do as an institution, not just in the student space, but in the research space too. So at that point, we brought together our student recruitment and marketing teams. Every university is different. But I came to my role, my current role, at around the same time. So as well as being tasked with bringing the two teams together, we also had quite a lot of things that we wanted to change, as well as keeping up with business as usual. So no mean feat. We still had to do open days, we still had to do school visits, but actually there's lots of change around that as well. So the team isn't actually that big. We've got a student recruitment manager, two officers that do a lot of project management work around open days and holiday visit days and things like that as well. Two assistant officers that also have projects but do a lot of the outbound visits, an administration manager, student recruitment coordinator, and then 3 marketing people. So actually it's a bit of a smaller team than the ones I've managed in the past, which works for me. The range of activity is big, but actually compared to those college roles that I worked in, the remit is slightly more focused. So that's been quite helpful. I think bringing together the two teams worked loads better than any of us thought, including the people in the team, to be honest. So there are always challenges in any process involving change. I think it's probably about working with people, working out what needs to happen quickly, what you've got a little bit more time to work on, how you can support the team alongside that to do their best work. I think essentially it's about leadership rather than management. I think nobody really wants to be managed. Management's a structural thing, whereas leadership's more of a kind of human thing. So I think it's about leadership and providing some sort of clarity of vision, working out what makes individuals tick the way that they want to be managed in order to do their best work, and then that just makes your life easier and everybody else's life easier. And then just finding the ways that you can add some value into those pieces of work along the way as well. So in my case, the links to the wider institution were probably the bit that I had to offer, as well as kind of links to the group of directors within our own division. I think a fresh set of eyes will always bring will always help going into a new job, and you can lose that quite quickly as well. Once you've been in a job for a year or two, you kind of fall into habits and ways of thinking. So we're always trying to keep a fresh set of eyes and think, well, if we're starting this from scratch, what would we do? It helped that I've done the jobs of the people in the team as well. So I've been a student recruitment officer, I've been a marketing officer, I've worked on both sides of the team, so I can understand their challenges and what they're going through on a day-to-day basis in order to get some of the things done. So I think it's about involving people in the decisions that are going to be affected by any changes. It's clearly not always possible to do that, but I think that's important to do. Just be open and communicate with people. Again, won't have always got that right over the years, but yeah, the team's really come together really well.
That's good to hear. I think, yeah, you were saying about the relationships that you've built up. That must be really helpful now working in a central team and working with those contacts that you developed. And also, it was interesting you say about people having done the jobs of the people within your team. That must really help develop that trust between you as their, I like the way you put it, their leader on and manager, and to help them their buy-in as well.
I think so, and I think that's just a principle for any team that I've managed. And again, you learn over the years, but the relationships between you and the team and each other, they have to have mutual trust. They have to have respect and honesty. They're not always going to agree with everything you do or that each others do, but if you lose the kind of trust and the respect and the honesty thing, you're in real trouble. And there have been one or two of those scenarios throughout my career where I've lost that. Really hard to get back. I think as long as you kind of learn whatever you've done in your career today, you'll have learned from it. So you learn from the good things you see going on around you. Sometimes you learn from the bad things as well. And I think it's about respecting, the most of the people in this team have done their jobs for quite a long time. So it's rare that any of the good ideas in any organisation come from the bosses. So you've got to take your time to listen and learn from people, allow them to be creative. And I think you just have to take responsibility for them, give them confidence, and then give them some opportunities and some freedom to try and fail if necessary. I know a lot of bosses say that over the years. I never know whether they quite mean it. Without the trust thing, you're really going to struggle. So that's something I'm grateful for in my current team, certainly.
Oh, wicked. And then, if you don't mind me asking, what's next then? So in your current role now, I presume, obviously you're enjoying it enormously. What sort of future plans do you think you might have, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it feels really strange to talk about my own career, doesn't it, when we're in the middle of a global pandemic? And at the moment, I'm just grateful for the position I've got. I'm grateful to be coping with the pandemic relatively comfortably compared to big chunks of the population, probably. I've got 4 really young kids, a wife who's a full-time nurse, so it's been a bit of an intense period for all of us at home. I'm grateful we're starting to come out the other side of that, albeit slowly. I've always been ambitious. I think most people that I've worked with would tell you that. My family would certainly tell you the same. But I've always kind of wanted to do things my own way as well, rather than dance to the beat of someone else's drum. So I'll always look for opportunities, and if I think something's right for me, I'll go for it. I like being at Birmingham and in Birmingham. There's always something to learn. I don't think I've boxed myself in too much with the things I've done throughout my career so far. I'm really open-minded. In terms of the things that are important to me for any future career decision, I'd like to maintain that element of creativity in any future role. It applies to most roles, but particularly to the one that I'm in now. I like being around people. I wouldn't say I'm particularly motivated by managing a massive team. So you kind of see some of those people throughout your career that are really interested in building the biggest team possible, an empire builder. But I'm not one of those people. I like being around people who are creative and who are different to me. In fact, that's a top tip for when you're recruiting people. Don't recruit people like you all the time. I've done that in the past as well. And you just get the same answers that you've got. And actually you want people that are thinking about things really differently. So yeah, obviously I want any future role to be interesting and to be one where there's a challenge. And a project I think I could make a difference to. I sound like Pep Guardiola at Man City, but I think, yeah, just being open-minded, ambitious. I set myself a completely arbitrary target when I was younger of being the director by the time I'm 40, and I've got a few years left to do that, but I don't even know if that's something that it just feels like a really odd thing to have come up with. So that was in my younger years, really. But yeah, currently focused on a family, doing a good job, happy where I am for the moment, but I always keep an eye out for new stuff. And as you can tell, I've done kind of 15, 16 jobs in the same amount of years, so I'm not averse to moving around.
No, that's great. And then just to wrap us off, really, I can probably guess some of your top tips that you've been sort of dropping in throughout. But for people who may be in officer positions at the minute, looking to progress to that next level, kind of as you've done throughout your career, what sort of top tips would you give to them?
There's going back to the graphic design thing, there's a poster by a guy called Anthony Burrell, which just says, work hard and be nice to people. You'll have seen it on some interior design blogs and all that sort of stuff. And actually, it's a really good mantra. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? But if you work hard and you're nice to people and you build those relationships, it makes everything else so much easier. Marketing's kind of on the marketing side of things, and in student recruitment, actually. Both jobs require a big chunk of common sense, and you'll be surprised how few people have actually got any common sense. So if you've got that, hold on to it and keep keep going with that. But yeah, I think it's just about, certainly in higher education, building relationships with people, treating people the way that you want to be treated as per in life. And yeah, just go from there, really. If there are some common opportunities, go for them. Like I say, it's really benefited my career. You'll always learn something, if that's a good thing, a bad thing, whatever, doesn't really matter. Certainly if you've been in the same roles for 4 or 5 years, just go and do something else. Side steps are fine. It's not all about money. I think that's another thing that this kind of pandemic is teaching people. It's not all about the money. You've got to go and do something that you want to do. And yeah, that's about it, really.
That's great. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Really great to catch up with you as well. And I hope everyone finds that useful. And I hope that gives you something to reflect back on as we're all working slightly differently at the moment. So take care, Adam, and take care, everybody else, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.